Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm Saja.
And I'm producer James.
We're here to talk about X-Men The Last Stand, and we're going to talk about minutes 50 through 60.
Ooh, do you want to know what happens in this one?
Of course, James.
Professor X's funeral, R.I.P.
Rip. Pour one out for a not homie.
Iceman gets a little close to Kitty Pryde. And Rogue's going to go get a cure.
Yeah. Ooh. Where do you want to start? Iceman, Kitty Pryde, Rogue, or Professor X?
Well, it's funny. Well, let's start with Professor X.
Of course.
We have his funeral, which the X-Men are not any strangers to funerals.
Oh, in the movie they are. In the comics, not so much.
Yeah. I looked up a few of them. There's a few like important ones. It's funny. I was like, what? I was like, one of the first big deaths, I would say, is Thunderbird.
Thunderbird.
No funeral.
That track.
Like,
I don't remember that.
The issue, it happens. I believe the last panel is just Cyclops walking away going, well, this is what happens when you're in the X-Men, I guess. I wasn't that glib, but it's kind of like how you read it. It was like, well, that stinks, but you know, we are fighting bad guys.
Ugh.
And then the next issue, there's just like a shrine for him. That's it. That's all he gets.
Okay.
But I think the first like big funeral scene we get out in the X-Men is when Phoenix dies.
Oh, sure.
Like where they started writing funerals to be very important for the story.
Okay.
So with that one, it's a recap of like the entire Phoenix sagas, and it ends with Scott leaving the team.
Got it.
That is like the whole issue. The whole issue is her funeral.
Yeah.
And this is also where her parents get the little like impression Shi'ar orb, whatever
right.
that's called.
Yes. Yeah. The memory, the bits of her or whatever. The 3D
where it's
thing.
a 3D hologram of her, but also like her impression. Like if you touch it, you get her vibe.
Yeah.
It's her vibe orb.
It's pretty great. Honestly, it's a really touching gift. Anyway.
It is a touching gift. I didn't look up did Doug Ramsey get a...
Did Doug Ramsey get a funeral?
I didn't get that far into the funerals.
No worries. I can tell you.
I figured you also probably knew.
Doug Ramsey's funeral is probably one of the most traumatic comic books I've ever read in my life.
Yeah. Do tell.
Okay. So Doug Ramsey dies in the New Mutants, and it is a pretty depressing death. Like basically,
because he's like a non-combatant. His ability is just to like understand languages.
He's like the tech guy. He's Q from Bond, right? It's like you don't put him in the field. He's supposed to be in the office, right?
He's the man in the chair.
Exactly. He is the man in the chair. And in Krakoa, he kind of becomes the man in the chair, right? Like, and then he becomes the chair and also the room. But that's irrelevant. Beside
He's everything,
the point.
and I love it.
Yeah. So all right. So he dies because he's trying to save people, but what's actually really heartbreaking about his death is that they don't even notice that he died.
Yeah.
Like at first, and it isn't till later, and they're like so he just dies with nobody holding his hand and nothing. It's pretty horrifying.
That's very horrifying.
It is. It's really, really sad.
Because with these, it's usually like everybody's looking at what's happening.
Right. And like, people are like, no, you have the traumatic moments. It's like literally a panel where he's like whispering, like, I think it was to Rain, and it's nobody notices. Or Mirage, I can't remember which one. Anyway, his funeral, basically Magneto, this is when Magneto kind of cracks. This is kind of the end of his reign as the headmaster here, because he has to go to the funeral and he has to apologize to the family of Doug Ramsey for basically letting their son die. And then he has to lie to them. And this is when they ask him, like, do you blame us for his death? And he doesn't answer to the New Mutants and just walks away to like talk to Ramsey's parents. The funeral is really depressing, but Warlock is struggling. So Warlock is like this techno-organic
alien,
exactly, that is Doug Ramsey's best friend. He has no understanding of the concept of death because he's like...
He's a technology... He's a technology alien.
He's a
that's
techno-organic
made out of,
embodiment, whatever. He's computer, basically. The issue following his funeral is Warlock digging up his grave and dragging Doug Ramsey's lifeless body through the mansion and around places and scaring everybody and having to wrestle with the concept of what it means to die.
That is heartbreaking and kind of funny, but like in a horrifying way.
That is exactly the tone, and they land it perfectly.
Oh, good.
It is one of the best comics I've ever read. It is pretty horrifying when you finally do get to the end of the comic, when Warlock has to understand that Doug is not coming back. Like, that's where the whole thing, that all that leads to the end. And I sob. If I read it right, I'm almost going to cry now because it's so sad. It's like so charming and so interesting. I personally, to me, that is the definitive X-Men funeral.
Yeah.
Because it is just like so horrifying.
Well,
it's in the
because
kids'
that
book.
one's about the actual funeral. That's about
Exactly.
that one is actually about the death. Whereas like Phoenix dying, it's about where Scott is in his life.
Exactly.
Like, it makes him reflect and not like, I mean, he is sad the whole time. It's not, I'm not saying this in a way that like he is being callous towards the death of his love.
Absolutely.
But it makes him reevaluate what he should be doing with his life. Whereas, oh, here's a being that doesn't know what death is.
Yeah, and then has to like wrestle with that concept. It is about everybody struggling, but it is like also about the loss of this very young kid, because like I said, the New Mutants is a kid book, right? Like, they're young, and like because of the actions they took, Doug Ramsey dies. All of them have to live with that until he is brought back to life much later.
Yeah.
But like to the point where it's almost irrelevant. Like, they basically, the New Mutants as they existed, even like into X-Force, which is what New Mutants becomes, wrestle with the death of Doug Ramsey forever, basically, until much later where they're older, because like they killed him. Mm-hmm. It was decisions that they made, choices that they did. They didn't listen to Magneto. They went off on an adventure without his permission, and their friend died. It's pretty messed up. And Magneto ends up becoming evil because becomes overprotective. He's like, I shouldn't have let you guys have freedom. I shouldn't have taken the soft approach. Basically, he's like, I should have locked you in. And that is like his perspective on it. Sorry, I'm going off on such a tangent, but I love this issue. It's so good. This run is so good.
Also why I was like, maybe I don't read all this, because I bet you Staj has it ready in the chamber.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could just talk about New Mutants anytime, anywhere. Like,
there's also the only other one that like comes to mind that I read casually, like as I was Nightcrawler's funeral.
Okay.
On Utopia. That was another one where it leads to a lot of cracks and a lot of, like, it's the same thing with Jean, where it's just like it affects everybody in different ways and how they are going to walk away from that funeral. But in the middle of a huge crossover event battle that is going on that over multiple issues, they all take a moment, because if anybody deserved it, it was him. And especially someone who is so Catholic. Like, he needs to have his rights before they continue fighting where they're going to fight. And I think that kind of leads to the cracks of Schism as well.
That makes sense.
But anyway, those were like the big ones. And I think there might be one for when Logan died, but I'm going to wait until Logan dies in the movies before we talk about any of that.
Yeah. Listen, the death of Logan, the X lives, X deaths of Wolverine.
Oh, no, not that one. The other death of Wolverine.
That's what I was kind of getting at.
Boy.
There's just too many of them. So we can separate those out.
We'll get around to those.
Eventually.
Yeah.
You could also make an argument that...
you could make an argument. I'm sorry.
I will make an argument that the kind of the monolith of Krakoa after the fall is almost like that Xavier wandering the island.
Right.
There's it's not quite a funeral, but it is a
grieving.
death of people and concept.
Woo.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to unpack on that.
So it's not exactly a funeral, but it kind of is.
Yes.
It's a funeral of
well, he doesn't know
life.
the extent of it, which is also part of the
issue.
Yeah.
Very
Literal
good.
issue and his issue.
Yeah. Should we do something a little lighter?
Yes, let's please.
Let's talk about Kitty Pryde and Iceman.
Okay. So when I was rewatching these minutes, I definitely was like, you know what's weird? The relationships in these movies. Only because it's not like the X-Men is like they're constantly changing partners. Like, people have little dalliances, but there are some like hard and fast relationships that are in X-Men.
Yeah.
Jean and Scott.
Jean and Wolverine.
Jean and Wolverine. But then you've got like Kitty and Colossus.
Kitty and Colossus is a classic.
Classic. Rogue and Gambit all day long.
That's true.
The fact that they put Rogue with Iceman is still weird.
It's an age thing, but yeah, it's weird.
It's still weird. It's a little less weird. The Iceman Kitty, like it feels a little, it matches a little more up with like the comics characters.
Yes.
But I thought maybe there was more, because when I did our research for Iceman coming out, part of it was when he came out, he had to call like all his ex-girlfriends, and Kitty was not happy that he didn't come to her.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, there was a thing there? Like, I think I missed it. And then I realized, like, it's not very long.
It's not very long, but it is during one of my favorite runs, which is why I know about it.
I knew
13 issues, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Iceman and Kitty Pryde.
Yes.
The thing is, you would think there's an age gap, but there isn't as much as you think, because Iceman is the youngest of the original X-Men by a lot. Like, he is supposed to be very young. So, like, him and then Kitty Pryde is actually added to the X-Men as kind of like the kid or whatever, but she's like added pretty early on. Like, this is before Storm is even leading the X-Men. So this is like older Claremont stuff. Like, she refuses to go to the New Mutants when they spin that up, because she's like, I'm not a kid. I don't belong there. So her and Bobby have had a very long friendship in the comic books, either in the comic book like timeline and also in actuality in our timeline of like how long those characters have been interacting in the X-Men.
Sure.
Quite a long time. So that relationship only kind of becomes a thing, and I kind of like this during the Phoenix 5.
The Avengers versus X-Men.
Yeah, AVX.
Event.
Yeah. Do you know what happens here? Because
I did read this one. Okay. Because like I was like, because once again saw it was Wolverine and the X-Men. I was like, hey, I kind of remember reading these. I don't think I got as, because I think I remember her kissing him. Mm-hmm. Is it the first issue? It's early on. It might be in the first arc.
Yeah.
Like after they defeat the little Hellfire Club.
Yeah. Well, they were dating before that. So yes.
But I think I remember Colossus going on a date with Kitty.
Yes.
In his Phoenix form.
Yes.
In the middle of like a ocean or lake, and it's just like split, like the Red Sea, and they're having a seafood dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
To talk about their relationship, which at this point has been like on and off rocky.
And it technically was off.
And it was off. Yeah. She realizes like, oh, maybe she should be dating Bobby. I don't think I ever got to them on their first date though. Like when I was originally reading it.
Got it.
But yeah.
Yeah, you've read it since.
I've read it since.
Their first date is very cute. It is really interesting because like Bobby basically is with Cyclops, but he shows up at the Jean Grey school. I think it's still called the Jean Grey school at that time.
Yeah, it is.
And he shows up because he's like the Phoenix 5. Like the Phoenix has been in all the people and with Cyclops and people on his side. And he's like, yo, these people are God complexing out. I'm actually back. I'm here at the school because...
So like in Avengers vs. X-Men, it's Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus, Namor, and Magic.
Yes.
And so some of the X-Men go, because they're trying to make the world a better place.
Right.
And so obviously Iceman would be part of that.
Right. Until
they start
Phoenix
going
starts twisting them a little.
You know, you got to, because they want to keep it. It's that control that you were talking about with Magneto. It's like once you get, oh, look at how much we've made it, how much good we've done.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we made it better?
Right.
Instead of just leaving it alone where they should have.
And they didn't. Yeah. So you get Bobby coming to the school and he ends up being a teacher. That's not interesting comic books. It's not. That's why. And that's when Kitty's like, if you ever, gather up enough courage to ask me out, I will kill you if you take me to a seafood place. So they have a little, this is, I think if I am correct, this is the last relationship before Bobby comes out.
I think so.
I'm almost positive.
Because I think are the young X-Men there at this point? Or they are at some... Oh, no, I think they are.
That's when they break up.
I think they show up, I was going to say, later in the run. But I'm saying, like, within their relationship, the youngins show up.
The young X-Men show up. And then that leads into the ramp of Bobby realizing that he's not straight. But they have a really cute date. You read it.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of try to have a normal, like, dinner date, and it goes pretty badly.
Well, they both are very awkward about, like, well, what do we even do? Like,
right.
we've been friends forever. We're now finally on a date. What do we even talk about? They both are like, I think I hear a mugger happening. Like, they think they need to check in on the school, that there's maybe a crime happening nearby, and Bobby starts to ice up.
His arm, yeah.
It's great because Rachel Summers shows up psychically and is like, you two need to sit down and have your date. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think they like see like, oh, I just saw like they named some superheroes running by, and they're like, they need help.
Yeah.
And
Spider-Man and Daredevil are going by. Yep, that's it.
And they don't know how to take a break, and it is kind of awkward until Kitty Pryde's like, you know what, we're gonna have a different kind of date, and they like go off and they have like fantastical adventures.
They save a house from a tornado by phasing through it.
It's pretty cool.
They go to the desert to give folks out there like ice, like giving them cold ice and water. And then they like, I think those are the two big things they show.
Yeah.
But when they come back, they're like, they make it seem like they've done way more.
For sure. Bobby is kind of like, should we just call this the perfect date and like let it end here? And Kitty Pryde's like, absolutely not. And they have like a big smooch. And it's really cute. They kind of date. And their relationship during this period is lots of goofs because they're both funny characters.
Yeah.
And so they basically just put two funny characters and be kind of goofy, and like they're powers.
lighthearted.
Yeah. And their powers kind of work really nicely, especially because at this time, Bobby's powers have like improved. He is like, he can like set like snowmen to like be alerts and things like that. He is like, his powers have kind of exploded.
He's in one room with Kitty being like, have you hacked it yet? And then in the other room, there's like a snow ice creature.
Yes.
That looks like it's from The Thing, like destroying Hellfire Club soldiers.
Exactly. And so like, you know, it's a really cute relationship that comes to an abrupt end, basically because we've talked about this briefly, but Beast brings back the original 5 in their timeline. So not an alternate timeline,
right.
Not a split timeline, their specific timeline, bring them to the present. And then they try to send those kids back against their consent. They don't want to leave. And Kitty ends up leaving the school and joining Cyclops and Magic and everything with the original kids because they would not respect their autonomy. And Kitty believes that that would be like kind of leaving those kids behind. It's very interesting.
Doesn't she end up like leading them too?
Yes,
like
she
ends
becomes
up
their
being
teacher.
their teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. She kind of gets a nice little barb on Bobby when she's leaving it, because basically she accuses him like he had 10 times today to gather up the courage to like tell her the truth, and he failed every single time. That's like, she like literally lays into him as she's like leaving, and they're like, how do we know, you know, like her goodbye is basically her Magic showing up, giving her a big hug, and Magic basically like sorting them through limbo. It is kind of interesting because like Magic and Kitty end up being like, there's a thing or, you know, between the two of them. And then Bobby obviously comes out and like goes on exploring his like own relationships. And it's kind of interesting that this split led them back into like same-sex couples, like for both of them eventually. I'm not sure that's exactly how they planned it, but I do think it's interesting in the context of that story. So not canon, but happened way later.
Right.
Than this
I was
movie.
about to say that. This is one of those that maybe the movie influenced
Possibly.
the comics, possibly. Because it could be one of those like, yeah, why not have those two together? Like I was saying earlier, it didn't seem like the weirdest couple.
They are also together in Wolverine and the X-Men, though I don't know for how long or how involved that is. But that cartoon also has it, which would have predated this comic book also.
Right.
So there's a little bit. There's some creepy crawlies in there, but that's about it. I think what they actually said in the first date is how I think later authors felt about it, where it's like they're just two good friends in some ways, of like they just grew up together and they kind of really enjoy each other's company, but at the end of the day, they're not like romantically a match.
Yeah.
There's no crazy blow up, no insane drama. This is not
That's
Havoc
probably why
and
I
Polaris.
forgot it was even a thing.
Really?
Well, there's also, I feel like there are issues where two like main characters, two main X-Men that have been around forever are all of a sudden kissing.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it leads nowhere.
All the time. Literally any literal X-Men in Storm. You could just like
Everybody kissing Storm.
Everybody wants to. And listen,
I
get
literally
it.
one of the things I was thinking of was there's like a cover with like I think Wolverine and Storm kissing.
Oh yeah, there's a big thing. There's a Black Panther literally has a conversation with Aurora with being he's just like literally couldn't it be anyone but Wolverine, and she's basically like we're divorced, so get lost. And I love it.
In case you didn't know that, Storm and Black Panther were married for a minute.
Married. She was the Queen of Wakanda. Anyway, that's a whole different thing.
We'll get into that one of these days.
Also, at the end of Wolverine and the X-Men, I think, like the death of Wolverine at that, I think that part of that is in there. There's some flashbacks to it and stuff. Anyway, something you might want to think about raising.
Sure. This 10 minutes ends with Rogue legitimately wanting to go get the cure because she sees Bobby and Kitty canoodling on the ice skates and is like, I just want to touch somebody.
Yeah, my boyfriend's cheating on me.
Emotionally cheating on me.
He's on a date, so I don't know about that. Might be actually.
This is, in all fairness, not that it helps, this is post-funeral. Like, everyone's kind of, she is homesick. Her mentor just died. He was trying to give her a little bit of normalcy.
I think we could read that differently, but that's okay.
But I'm saying, like, but here's the thing. You invite Rogue. That just solves the problem.
We did talk about this when we were watching the movie. We did.
I was like, there's nothing wrong with helping Kitty out. Rogue should be there.
Yes.
How is Rogue not there?
You needed to enlist the assistance of your girlfriend in this situation. Is absolutely required.
Even if your intentions are good, the optics are bad.
The optics are real bad.
Real bad. You're in a public fountain on the premises. Everybody can see it.
Yeah. Don't embarrass me. You know, that kind of behavior.
So anyway, Rogue talks to Wolverine, is like, you know what? I'm considering getting it. And he's like, if that's what you need to do. And she's like, aren't you supposed to be talking me out of this? And I just love Wolverine for that. He's like, no, what am I supposed to say to you? Your opinions are valid.
Yeah. Much more. Yeah. In the movies, she
has no plus. There's nothing in her plus column.
Right.
In the comics.
Yeah. There's quite a bit more.
She's a powerhouse. She's there to do some business. If she didn't have Ms. Marvel's powers,
it's brutal. Yeah, it's hard. It's a really hard power set. So I was very curious about this because like the only Cure storyline that I could remember, I was like, that's from the animated series.
Yes.
And so I was like, I don't remember.
Because in the animated series, it's weird because it leads into Apocalypse and Archangel Archangel's like, I'm going to get the cure, and then gets turned into Archangel. That's not what happens in the comics.
Well,
it didn't originally.
So I was poking around and I found an issue of X-Men Adventures number 10.
Okay, when is X-Men Adventures number 10? What era
August
are we talking
1993.
Here? Okay.
So this is actually a legitimate X-Men comic book series that were, I don't know. It basically is based on the television show.
Okay.
So it was coming out concurrently with the show.
I was going to say that sounded like it probably was around the same time.
So technically, this storyline
is canon
in X-Men Adventures, as far as you consider that to be canon.
When did you say that was?
August 1993.
Okay, because the episode we're talking about is February 93.
Okay. So this would have been later that year. It's like one of those things, like, what do you do with that, really?
Right.
Because this is a full comic book.
I mean, it looks like a real comic. It's not like, oh, this is in the animated series style or anything. This looks legitimate.
It is a different universe, so it's not the 616 because
Okay, I think that's more of what I was curious about.
So in this issue, Juggernaut is his half brother, and not his stepbrother, which he is in the 616.
Right. Okay.
So that is maybe something to think about as to like where exactly this storyline is, but it is technically canon. So I feel like I can talk about what happens in this issue.
Sure. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a ton of time, but I'll give you, if you've seen the animated series, you've seen this, but it's basically like Cable is fighting with Warren because he's looking for this Dr. Adler. There is
which is Mystique in the I'm sure is in this too. Yeah.
Yes. And basically this is like Dr. Adler is developing a cure for the mutant gene. Rogue wants to go because of Gambit. Gambit tries to convince her to not. She goes to Scotland anyway on Muir Isle. And then this is where Pyro, Avalanche, Mystique are there. They fight. She finds Adler. Basically, long story short, there's a big machine. It's not actually a machine to cure anything. It is a machine that turns them into slaves of Apocalypse. And then Rogue kind of like the machine gets like buried on top of her by Avalanche, like while she's like fighting them at, and destroying stuff. It's literally.
I was gonna say that sounds a lot like the animated series.
The animated series.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm gonna describe it as.
Yeah,
what do you do with that?
Usually, I feel like cure stuff. There's been like a handful. The Whedon run had it.
Yeah.
As part of the story, I believe the Ecstatics. I can't remember if it was in the X-Force run or the Ecstatics run. They had a cure in there at one point, I think, or twice.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there's not more of it, because there are a lot of mutants, or there should be a lot of mutants, whose mutation is dangerous to themselves and everyone around them.
Right.
And most of the time when it happens, they somehow get the mutant to rein it in and keep it together. There's a couple of like more recent instances where that's the case, where it'll be like an issue or two of the person running rampant, and then they get them to calm down, and then they're just part of the X-Men, or at least like part of wherever the X-Men are stationed at the time. I feel like a cure would be too easy for some of them to be like, yeah, I just want to be a normal person. I don't want to be a mutant. And that kind of goes against any sort of mutant metaphor you can have.
Right. Yeah. When you can choose to stop being a mutant. A lot
like
of the
time. Like if you can
time,
choose to not be othered.
Yeah.
Especially if whatever you're doing is hurting the people around you or yourself.
Yeah. Kind
of hurts the metaphor.
Yeah. The Whedon run does have the hope cure, which is what they call it.
Yeah, this is before Hope.
Yeah, but
so no relation.
Yeah, I think it ends up killing people, right? Like it doesn't actually.
If I remember it correctly, the cure does work. Ord from Breakworld created it to basically cure all the mutants on Earth so that they wouldn't go back to his world and destroy it. Because there is a prophecy that someone's going to do it. And it's Colossus. Spoiler alert. And somehow they used the legacy virus from Colossus. So they sort of create the problem that they're trying to prevent. Great Greek mythological fashion.
Yeah, you're not wrong. The main concern with the cure, I remember from the Astonishing X-Men, is the fact that like Emma Frost and the rest of them are like afraid that this is going to become like effectively what is like forced sterilization. Yeah. Which it is. So
right. That is what you're worried about.
That is a concern.
There was a Mark II in the new X-Men run of Hellions where it was a temporary cure based on Wither. The mutant Wither that can decay organic material. Yeah. It would sort of temporarily turn off mutant powers, but it wasn't a permanent one. But I think the original still was, but I don't think they made a lot of it. Yeah. And I know that like Beast talked to the doctor, her doctor, I can't remember her name, Rao, I think. And it like is Rao. There was like a big conversation about that. I think Dr. Rao is the scientist in this movie.
Yes. Too. That tracks then. Yeah. But this would have Astonishing X-Men would have been after the movie, right? Or was it actually at the same time? I don't remember exactly when that run started.
Astonishing X-Men started 2004.
Ooh, very close.
It was right before. They may have been sort of being made concurrently because X-Men Last Stand 2006. Okay. Astonishing X-Men early run 2005.
So yeah, maybe they knew where the movie was going and were like playing with those ideas.
I know that now we're getting a little behind the scenes of movie making is that Fox having the rights to the X-Men, if the X-Men make a character, Fox is allowed to use them.
That's true.
So they probably got a list of like, here's all the new characters and like a little breakdown of like who they are and what they do. They probably saw Dr. Kavita Rao made a cure for the X-Men, for mutants. And it's like writing it in.
Her out, yeah.
Done.
That makes
sense. That's why
sense.
Fat's also in here.
Right.
You know, like, oh, here's a character that can be real fat and then not fat.
Okay.
Write him in. Let's do it. Glob's in there. Glob Herman. I don't know how old he is at this point, like character wise. There's like, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent because it's fascinating. So there was a crossover sort of event of covers. They do this every once in a while where like they'll take a bunch of alternate covers and they'll have different artists do something. They're like, we're going to play with it this month. You're all doing a thing. And this is around the Spider-Gwen stuff where they're like, well, let's put Gwen Stacy as a bunch of heroes. Okay. So you got Dr. Gwen. So it's Doctor Strange, but it's Gwen Stacy. And one of the ones they did was Gwenpool, where is Gwen Stacy dressed as Deadpool, except for it's pink. And it is the Gwenpool outfit that you know and love. Okay. So Marvel goes, here's the problem. If she's Gwen Stacy, Sony gets to use her.
Right.
We're creating a character that Sony can just use. If she's an alternate of Deadpool, Fox gets to use it. We can't let that happen either. Because she, like, the audiences loved it. They're like, this design is great. It was just a cover. So they created her. And her backstory is, her name is Gwen Poole, Poole. She is from our world, the real world, and she made her way into Marvel Comics. So she can break the fourth wall like Deadpool, but she does it because she's read comics before, not because her mind is broken.
Right.
And she has no other powers.
I have been so tempted to read Gwenpool stuff. I haven't yet. Brian loves it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But I just recently dug into the like why behind the scenes. So I'm saying things happen fast.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's why Dr. Rao is just in here too.
That makes a lot of sense actually. So I would bet more likely that it was pulled from the comic versus the other way around, given how close it is. Like they didn't have enough time to watch the movies before they were writing this, I don't think. So
well,
it would have been the other way around.
Yeah, I doubt they were reading the scripts.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah,
there you go.
There it is. Well, I think we finally hit time. We are motoring through this one. I've been your host, Tasha.
I'm producer James.
And we'll see you for the next 10.